Before I start, I want to say hello to all my fabulous people out there. My name is Angie, and I'm an early career recruiter here at Figma. I'm really excited to moderate this student-led panel since I work very closely with early career talent at Figma. So before we jump into our session, I'd like for our students led panelists to introduce themselves. If you can say your name, your school, what you studied, and what makes you a maker. So I'll go first. My name's Angie. Hey, I went to FFSU back in the day. I studied comms and how I'm a maker. I love to make homemade music videos. I've been doing it since a little girl, and it's cool because I get to incorporate it now in the early career talent branding space. So we can kick it off with Jonathan, Generous, and Mary. So if you could tell us or everyone your name, where you went to school or go to school, what you studied or study, and how are you a maker?
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Guzman. I'm a journalist. Sorry, I'm a journalism major at San Jose State University. However, I am pursuing a career in product design. I'm expected to graduate from SJSU in May. A little fun fact about me is that I interned at Quizlet this summer. Being educators, y'all might have heard of that company, perhaps even used it. But I actually found it through Twitter. Yeah, I just like tweeted a link to my portfolio. I wasn't really expecting anything. But my 60 followers. Yeah, and then the design manager at Quizlet emailed me a few days later, and the rest is history. And what makes me a maker? I'm the founding designer at a student-led startup. We're making an events discovery app for college campuses. We're expected to launch at USC or the University of Southern California this fall. And I've basically led the end-to-end design process. So yeah, I've had so much fun like collaborating with these highly motivated students and individuals. Yeah.
Hey friends, I'm Generous and I studied human-centered design and engineering at the University of Washington over in Seattle. And how am I a maker? Great question. I make visits to restaurants. I try to make the food look good, and then I make sure that the camera always eats first.
Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Mary Tanian. I just graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology this past May, where I studied new media design. I'm currently working at the branding agency Red Antler as an internal brand designer. And what makes me a maker on top of being a designer by trade is that my mom was an artist. So growing up, I was always super involved in arts and crafts, and I still love to do hands-on projects like that.
Awesome. Okay, so now it's on to the questions. Okay, so Generous and Mary, what made you want to study design and what was your path?
Yeah, I can kick things off. I would say I randomly stumbled upon design actually, but I haven't looked back. So I was in the College of Engineering and like on track to study an engineering major, but I had to apply to individual ones. And so I ended up applying for what we call human-centered design and engineering, mainly because the values spoke to me and being like human-centered. And so basically doing things for people, by people. And it's not your typical engineering major, but we're more cross-functional, I guess. And the mission just really resonated with me through accessibility, equitable design, and being human first. And so that's really what the UX field is, building user experiences for all people. And it's much more methodological and strategic than I first thought, and not just artistic. So yeah, that's kind of like my main advice. Like, even if artistic things aren't your forte, design's a field you should at least check out, whether it's through class or like self-explorations through all the many wonderful resources we have out there.
Generous, I love that you said that once you discovered design, you never looked back, because I totally feel that too. I started my path in high school. My older sister is a graphic designer, and of course, as siblings do, I wanted to copy her, and I took a graphic design class when I was a junior. I ended up loving it, and I was really passionate about it. And the teacher for that class pushed me to choose graphic design as my major for the colleges I was applying to. And I went through with that, and I got to RIT originally for graphic design. But after a few conversations with upperclassmen, I decided that I wanted to change my major to new media design, which is kind of similar to like what Jonathan studied. What Jenner studied, in that there's some like user experience design. So I was really happy with that change. And overall, because of the people in the design community that inspired me and uplifted me and pushed me to pursue, that's how I got to where I am today. And it's very happy to be here.
I'm so generous. I know you mentioned that you were studying engineering right when you got into college. So before school, did you know design was a career? And also, when was your like aha moment? Like, I actually want to make a career out of design.
Yeah, so I didn't actually think of design as like a career until I actually got into my major. And I think seeing my classmates landing jobs, internships, that was like the aha moment, just being surrounded by inspiration through my professors, my classmates, and being able to see their success. It was super enlightening, and like being able to view their portfolios, their projects, and just their work. It was really motivating. So it made me want to do similar. And I mean, like, create such beautiful designs that also had, I guess, meaning behind each choice, such as where a button is placed so that it's easily accessible by your thumb on like a mobile device. And so that logic really just made so much sense that I began to look at design choices on mobile apps in a similar fashion. So yeah, if you've ever questioned why some of your favorite apps went through changes and you've had an opinion on the change, design might be a career worth checking out because you'll be at the forefront of influencing that change.
Nice, thank you. And I actually want to ask Jonathan. Jonathan, you mentioned earlier that you study journalism. So same question for you. Before school, did you know design was a career? And when was your aha moment like, hey, I actually see myself having a career of design?
Yeah. So I guess I'll tell a little story, but I was born and raised in what's considered to be Silicon Valley. So I feel like one of the expectations people have when they meet me when they're not from here is that I probably have this vast knowledge of tech and all these hundreds of career paths that lead to tech. But for the longest time, I had zero understanding of like the actual like what it actually takes to be in tech, or what even jobs are in tech. I grew up thinking like you had to code, and it just seemed like so boring to me. But I would see all these like kids going to like these coding camps and stuff like that. I'm like, even from like as a middle schooler, I felt behind in my career just because there's so much of that around here. Um, but yeah, I was just more into like making conversations, being creative, and that kind of led me to journalism. I originally wanted to be a news anchor for a local station, but I thought, it would be fun, pitching story ideas, editing film, attending these extraordinary events. But in my experience, it was a little too cookie cutter. You always had to look and talk a certain way. And early in like your career for journalism, you kind of required to move across the country, and that just wasn't for me. So during the early stages of the pandemic, my friend and I started a small business that didn't take off, unfortunately, but I was in charge of all these like creative aspects of the company, creating flyers, and I built the website, and it was like so much fun building the website. Um, I spent hours trying to perfect a template, which was pretty much already perfect, but I thought I could add to it. So I thought, hey, maybe like let's look into graphic design. And I kind of just like searched up, graphic design or graphic web designer, stuff like that. And it kind of led me to this job title called product design, which is basically graphic design and developing mixed together without having to code. And since then, I've kind of just been teaching myself as much as possible. Yeah.
How has studying design impacted your career? Or yeah, so far, Jonathan?
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I have, I've been given the opportunity to work at Quizlet, which at one point I thought it was, it's just like a dream role. I shouldn't even be considering working there because, it's way above my level. But, I just kind of built confidence over time, teaching myself. And, when I was at Quizlet, I started to feel like, hey, this is for me. Like I do belong here. Um, and just so many amazing people there that reassured me like I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm on the right path. And just keep working hard at it.
Thank you so much. Um, so let's transition from out of the classroom to now Figma. So Generous and Jonathan, how did you start learning Figma and what made you want to get started? We can start off with Generous.
Yeah. I think I started learning Figma because I just heard it was like this industry standard at the time in like this growing field of user experience or human computer interaction. And so while doing so, I also learned like I could use it for my browser and I didn't need to download anything. So it's kind of like a free trial. And so I'd compare it with Google Docs where I can just open up a link from any machine and still access it. As for resources that like helped me get started more and like encouraged me to get started. Uh, I think I stumbled upon UI kits and I saw many others were using them. And so UI kit stands for user interface kits, and they're basically design files with like these grab and go elements. And during this time, I would find these kits through Google, but a lot would prompt me to kind of like subscribe for some access. However, also like at this time in early 2019, I want to say, Figma community was being beta tested. And now it's this living community full of inspiration, help, and like interesting use cases. And so, yeah, Figma community is this big resource of files that designers upload, they share publicly, and it's a resource I highly recommend everyone to try to check out for inspiration and just to reverse engineer designs. Because for me, I would duplicate some of those files. I'd grab some of those mobile screens to start as a template for some of my passion projects or like hackathon work. And in Figma community too, there's like things readily available like iOS design kits with iPhone elements such as your header, keyboards. And so they're just readily available to grab and go. And so I often do this because it's just a time saver. And if it's already created, it exists. Like, why wouldn't I save some time?
I agree.
Yeah.
I love the community file. I use so much. I use it all the time because I like to like still like an artist because I just have a lot going on and it's already there. So I like to go in there and use the resources as well. Okay, so Jonathan, I know you're about to say something. So can you channel into like when did you start learning Figma and what made you want to get started?
Yeah. So at SJSU, we are actually offered, a free subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud, which is basically all of Adobe's products. And within that, it's Adobe XD, which is similar to Figma. So that's kind of how I got started. But I kept hearing this, like getting more involved in the design community. I kept hearing people talk about, this Figma, like Figma is, it's taking off. There's all these new updates. You can do so much with it. So I decided to give it a try. And immediately I thought it was a little challenging for me, but it honestly, there's such a big community out there with a bunch of resources where it kind of expedited the process of getting to learn like all the ins and outs of Figma. And you can honestly just go on Twitter, tweet something and someone will like help you and respond to you. And there's a bunch of, people at Figma as well that they're just open to talking to you about these things and sharing the knowledge that they have. So yeah, I honestly, what made me love Figma the most is that it's like you can collaborate within Figma all at the same time. It's easy to communicate the designs to people that aren't designers, especially with the expect panel for developers it just works wonders. It kind of, it eases all the troubles of communicating every single decision with people around me.
And I kind of want to emphasize on like how Figma is very collaborative because I'm based out in San Diego and we had our first intern on our early career team and she was living in San Francisco. And we got to make a very exciting, basically revamp our candidate pack. And it was good to have us both like hop in the file and kind of teach her some like tricks and like tips and basically make our new candidate pack for the season just more beautiful, more inclusive, just more welcoming. So I'm actually really curious to see if you, Generous, or Jonathan have made anything exciting so far in Figma or anything that you created recently.
Yeah, on my side, I've been playing like pixel art in Figma. And so I create pixel characters using squares in Figma. And I've been experimenting with like animations in this style. And personally for me, like I'm looking to contribute to this lovely Figma community that I've like mentioned earlier, because it's been such a valuable asset for me. So that's still an ongoing process. Like I'm hoping for like a bigger release, like ideally with some grab and go like uh customization wardrobes with like items to create your own pixel characters to create like game screens with.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely seen Generous's pixel art on like the Figma social medias, so that's really cool. Y'all should check that out. But I guess on my end, aside from Rendezvous, I actually created a widget at a hackathon for Quizlet. It was an intern hackathon just a few weeks ago, and within a week, me and a few other interns, we were tasked to just make something completely new and cool that can be added to the Quizlet ecosystem. And yeah, we actually won. So 2 out of the 3 categories, which was Ship It Now and Crowd Favorite. And soon enough, hopefully, the Quizlet will be used by potentially millions of Quizlet users. So yeah, I thought that was something really cool that I made.
Thank you. Okay, EDU community. I did not forget about Mary. So Mary, we haven't heard from you in a while. So I'm curious to know like what skills did Figma help you build and how are those related to the future?
Totally. So I'd like to start out, I got a call out in the chat that I want to answer first. So I actually have never used another program like Figma. I've never used Adobe XD or Sketch. I was taught Figma in, I think, 2019, my sophomore year. That's what all of the upperclassmen were using. That's what the professors were teaching. And I was really happy to get right into it and learn it because I'd heard such great things about it. Some things that I've made recently, I do use it for my job now, but when I was in school, I made a really interesting collaborative project. We made an interactive game in Figma in which we even had developers using the Figma as well to pull our assets and leave comments to let us know how things were looking and how things were going. So to go back to the question that you just asked, what skills did Figma help me build? Collaboration and communication are the biggest ones. And it's something that you really need if you're going to be working with others in a team. Some of the features that Figma has that allows communication to be streamlined are cursor chat, the live chat, leaving comments, and even just being in the same file at the same time as other people and knowing that you're working together, even if you're not actually together. It really beats zipping up a file and sending it back and forth and back and forth. So learning to work together, really together, especially during the pandemic, was a really good skill to have. And when it came to looking for a job, having experience with Figma on my resume was not only a huge boost, but I kind of found it to be a must. Companies kind of expect it nowadays. And I found in my job hunt that many companies were either switching to Figma now, or they had recently switched to Figma, and they were really looking for new candidates who were familiar and could help them like streamline that process. I even had in one of my interviews a design challenge take place in Figma. So if I hadn't been super familiar with it beforehand, I probably would have bombed that instantly. So being familiar with Figma was essential to my success in the job hunt.
I love this. So Jonathan, actually, since you were interning at Quizlet, or I think is your internship over now, or are you still interning there?
Yeah.
You're
Oh, it just wrapped up on Friday.
Oh, nice. Okay. So I'm kind of curious to see how like did Figma play a role in your job hunt and helping you secure your internship role at Quizlet?
Yeah. I honestly think Figma is more than just what meets or more than what meets the eye. There's like this whole surrounding community. And it's not just a product, but as a Figma student leader at SJSU, I've learned how to become a leader. I kind of had like limited experience in leadership roles before I joined Friends of Figma. And now, I'm in charge of helping set up events and managing a team of students and, and networking and interacting and providing resources to the club. And from a design standpoint, Figma has helped me um, become a better communicator and collaborator, kind of like a plus one to what Mary has said. Um, at Quizlet, I was in charge of handing off designs to engineers and um, the Figma feature, as I said before, the inspect panel just made it that much easier, and organizing files was really easy to do in a timely manner. And yeah, that's just something that's like helped me progress in my career. And it's gonna these are skills that I'm gonna keep using in my career, and it's Figma makes it that much smoother. Yeah, but yeah, my experience as a student leader and some of my work at Rendezvous ultimately led me to proving my expertise in product design, which landed me the internship and what I consider to be a dream job. Um, it just showed like how invested I was in design and the efforts to help a community of designers. Um, yeah, additionally, I've met professionals at Figma too that they've they've gone out of their way to offer guidance and support and share resources with me. Um, yeah, so I'm just starting my career, but I feel like leaps and bounds better than I did, just a year ago, and I can't wait to see where I am in a year from now. Yeah.
I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all making me y'all. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so as we wrap up our session, for this question for everyone, what's one last thing you leave the audience with? Like, what do you wish teachers knew about Figma in school? And is there any advice for teachers bringing Figma into the classroom? Let's start off with Generous, and then we can get Mary and then Jonathan.
Yeah, I think I definitely want to call out the collaborative nature of Figma. It's great to note like nowadays there's even widgets to work with, which can be helpful in counting votes among other things. Like I would use this tool to like pull ideas when peers, either students or coworkers are like debating between multiple choices. Um, Being a collaborative like virtual whiteboard, Figma does lend itself to being more engaging and encouraging students to participate. So as you might have saw with some of the previous talks, just being open to building new lesson plans around doing rather than just watching or listening would be super impactful, especially with design students. There's tons of hands-on learners out there. So I think Figma is just a great asset for that. I think reading for me definitely got stale throughout courses. And when there is more interactive components or some sort of activity, it just felt much easier. And so I'm not a teacher, but in clubs, I would share slides on Figma with miniature activities that served as like a quick check. So if it were sharing information about like how to create pixel art, I might have a dedicated slide or an area for my like audience to try it out on their own.
Mary, do you want to channel in?
Absolutely. I would love to add a big +1 to everything Generous said. But to build off of it, one of the biggest reasons that I think Figma was really huge in my use of it in school was because it's free. My college didn't provide a membership to any other design programs. So I would be paying for those out of my pocket. And a lot of people can't afford that. So being able to use Figma for free, especially when you're collaborating with others, because you don't have to worry if somebody you're working with can access it or not. It makes it really easy. You just have to send them a link and they can even just hop in the browser. A few other things I think that teachers and professors can do to get a leg up on bringing Figma into the classroom would be to really get familiar with the product. Learning different keyboard shortcuts is a really, really good way to just speed up your process. I'm still learning new ones, and it's really, really helpful. And there's a million YouTube videos online. There's a million people online who post tips and tricks. So if you can find yourself in that little nook of the internet, you're going to be in a really great place. And I would love to say that what I've seen from the other presenters today, the other teachers who were sharing how they use Figma in the classroom, I was loving what I was seeing. And I wish that I was using Figma in a similar way when I was using it in class.
Yeah, I guess just to add on a little bit to Generous and Mary, because they've said a ton of things that you could do with Figma. But yeah, I mean, it's more than just a design tool. You can honestly do anything with it. How Mary said, the previous sessions before us, they showed us how they use it in the classroom, and you can even use these files that are meant for design and kind of retrofit them into using them for students in a classroom. And if I'm not mistaken, I know that Figma is going to be on like Google Chromebooks, which is really cool. And being students, it's already free for that, which is I think that's awesome. And then shout out to Jane in the comments. She said like opening Figma to education is probably the best thing to happen to design. I 100% agree with that. That's like to the T. That's I think what's really amazing about Figma is that they are open to making design, not even just or making education, not necessarily just design, that much better and more accessible to all.
Thank you, Generous, Mary, and Jonathan. So this was an amazing conversation, and your insights being a student using Figma is actually really helpful and resourceful for the EDU community. Design is so important and valuable, and we can't wait to see what you do next. By the way, I know that there's some students here as well. Figma is hiring, and we just opened our intern and full-time early career roles in product design, a career in product design, software engineering, and data science. So if you have anyone in mind, please have them apply at figma.com/careers.